They told you that love is pure, that it is an untainted force of connection and harmony. But what if I told you that, beneath the surface of modern romance, there festers a silent manipulation, a game of masks and shadows so pervasive that you barely recognize it, even as it devours you? Have you ever wondered why relationships today feel hollow, transactional, almost performative? Why the promises of unconditional love crumble into silent resentments and subtle power plays? Is it truly love? Or something far more insidious? Wearing love's disguise. Carl Jung warned us, though he rarely said it outright. When we engage in love without knowing our own unconscious drives, we become puppets to them. You think you are choosing your partner freely. But are you? Or is your persona, the carefully curated identity you present to the world, seducing another persona in a masquerade where neither of you is truly seen? Behind every "I love you" in modern relationships, there lurks an unspoken contract. The manipulation of emotions to secure validation, security, or status. We offer affection not as a gift, but as a currency, trading intimacy for the illusion of being wanted. Jung called this the tyranny of the unconscious. The parts of ourselves we refuse to confront, our shadow, dictate our choices, leading us into bonds that feel magnetic yet are ultimately suffocating. You think you are in love, but perhaps you are simply ensnared by your own unmet needs, projected onto someone else. Look closely at your relationships. Are they acts of genuine connection or unconscious strategies of survival? Do you love the person or the role they play in your internal drama? This is not a comfortable question. It is not meant to be. It is meant to rupture the facade, to force you to look into the abyss of your own psychological machinery. And once you glimpse that abyss, everything begins to change. You have been seduced, but not by your lover, by your own persona. That mask you wear, the charming, agreeable, desirable version of yourself, is not who you truly are. It is a carefully crafted illusion, a defense mechanism designed to conceal the raw, chaotic forces beneath. You learn to wear it as a child, adapting to the expectations of parents, teachers, society. And now, as an adult, you bring it into your relationships, believing it is the authentic self that loves and desires. But ask yourself, who is really choosing your partner? Is it the conscious you, or the persona programmed to seek validation, to avoid abandonment, to maintain an image of desirability at any cost? Carl Jung saw through this long before Tinder reduced desire to a swipe. He warned that the persona, when mistaken for the self, leads to alienation, not just from others, but from your own essence. You perform love, but do not feel it. You say the words, but they ring hollow, because they are uttered from behind a mask. Modern love thrives on this seduction. Social media has amplified it. Endless displays of curated affection, aesthetic perfection, and exaggerated happiness. You internalize these performances, mimicking them in your own romantic encounters, convinced that this is what love should look like. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. Your authentic self, the one you buried to become socially acceptable, aches to be seen. And so unconsciously you begin to manipulate, to elicit reactions, to provoke jealousy, to withhold affection. All desperate strategies to test whether someone can see through your mask, to recognize the real you that you have long forgotten. This is not love. This is emotional manipulation disguised as intimacy. And yet, you cling to it. Because without the persona, who would you even be? What happens when the mask slips, when your partner catches a glimpse of the chaos beneath? Do you retreat, or do you dare to confront the parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime hiding? This is the silent warning Jung left us. Until you dismantle the persona, you will never truly love, nor be loved. You believe you are choosing your lovers freely, guided by conscious desires and deliberate preferences. But what if I told you that every person you've ever felt drawn to was chosen by something far older, far darker, your shadow. Carl, Jung defined the shadow as everything within us that we deny, repress, or disown. It is the repository of all that we refuse to acknowledge: rage, shame, lust, fear. But here's the terrifying truth. What you repress, you unconsciously seek. The partners you choose are not accidents. They are mirrors reflecting the disowned fragments of your psyche. That cold, distant lover you chase obsessively. They personify your own suppressed indifference, your own inability to nurture. The controlling partner you cannot escape. They embody the dominance you refuse to accept within yourself. Modern love is haunted by the shadow lover, the archetypal force that draws you into relationships not for connection, but for confrontation. You are not seeking comfort. You are seeking a battleground where your conscious self and unconscious instincts wage silent war, and yet you remain unaware. You mistake this pull for fate, for chemistry, for the one. But the truth is darker. Your psyche orchestrates these encounters to force you to meet the parts of yourself you've buried. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every toxic entanglement, none of them are coincidences. They are psychic summons, invitations to confront your shadow in the flesh of another human being. But what do you do instead? You blame the other. You vilify your ex. You lament your bad luck. You vow to find someone better. All the while, the shadow remains unintegrated, lurking in the dark, preparing for its next manifestation, until you turn inward and ask, what part of myself did this person awaken? What hidden truth about my own psyche did this relationship reveal? This is the path Jung outlined, not to find the perfect partner, but to recognize the unconscious forces that shape your desires, so that you might finally love from a place of awareness, not compulsion. But few dare to walk this path. Do you think love is spontaneous, natural, free? But it isn't. Beneath every modern relationship lies an unconscious contract, a silent agreement forged not by logic or clarity, but by the unresolved wounds of your past. Did you ever stop to wonder why you are irresistibly drawn to those who wound you? Why you repeat the same painful patterns, relationship after relationship, despite swearing you'd never make the same mistake again? Is it bad luck, or is it something deeper, more inevitable? Jung would say it is your unconscious at work, weaving a contract you never consciously signed. The terms are simple. I will play this role if you play that one. You seek out the one who will neglect you because, long ago, neglect became synonymous with love. Or you chase after the emotionally unavailable because their coldness mirrors the detachment you experienced when you first learned what intimacy was supposed to feel like. These are not accidents. They are compulsions, born from the instinctual drive of the psyche to replay unresolved traumas until they are finally confronted. But here is the sinister twist. As long as these contracts remain unconscious, they will govern your life in secret. You will continue to fall for the same types, endure the same heartbreaks, and repeat the same justifications. It just didn't work out. They changed. I guess I wasn't enough, never realizing that you were acting out a script written long before you met them. Modern love culture doesn't want you to see this. It glorifies autonomy, choice, and self-expression, as if you are the master of your own heart. But Jung knew better. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. How many more times will you mistake compulsion for passion? How many more times will you bind yourself to someone only to realize, too late, that you were never really choosing? They were simply the actor who fit your unconscious role. The only escape is brutal self-honesty. To excavate the buried wounds that author your love stories, to revoke the contracts you never meant to sign. But are you willing to do that? Or will you remain trapped in this cycle, indefinitely? They tell you to find someone compatible, someone who shares your interests, values, and lifestyle. But what if I told you that compatibility is often just a seductive illusion, a comforting narrative that masks the deeper, unconscious forces truly drawing you together? Consider this. Have your most intense relationships ever been with those who merely liked the same movies, shared your political views, or enjoyed the same hobbies? Or were they with those who awakened something far more primal, far more chaotic, something you couldn't quite explain? Jung would argue that what we call compatibility is often a distraction from the archetypal forces at play. You do not fall in love with someone because they check your boxes. You fall in love because they activate your complexes, the emotional wounds, fears, and longings that reside in the unconscious, that quiet, reserved partner you claim to adore for their stability. Perhaps they mirror your own fear of emotional exposure, that wild, unpredictable lover you can't quit. Perhaps they embody the chaos you repress in yourself. The myth of compatibility keeps you searching endlessly for the perfect fit, all while avoiding the terrifying truth. Love is not about alignment, but about confrontation. In truth, we are drawn not to those who complete us, but to those who reflect our incompletion, who bring to the surface the unresolved parts of ourselves we'd rather keep buried. And so, modern love becomes a game of optimization. Dating apps, personality tests, endless self-help advice, all designed to engineer the ideal match. But beneath this surface-level engineering, your unconscious continues its ancient work, orchestrating encounters that will force you to face your shadow, regardless of compatibility. This is why your relationships implode despite doing everything right. This is why your checklist never protects you from heartbreak. Because the psyche cares little for compatibility. It cares only for integration. Until you understand this, you will continue to seek comfort where you need confrontation, and stability where you need transformation. So I ask you, is it really compatibility you want, or are you ready to meet the parts of yourself you've long denied? You say you want love, but what you really want is control. Is that too harsh? Look closer. In modern relationships, control masquerades as care. You monitor their messages to feel secure. You withhold your emotions to protect yourself. You manipulate with kindness, with silence, with affection, all in an effort to maintain the upper hand, to avoid vulnerability, to prevent rejection. But what is love if not the very act of surrendering control? Carl Jung warned that when we fail to integrate our unconscious instincts, we become dominated by them. Emotional manipulation becomes our default, not because we are malicious, but because we are terrified. Terrified of being abandoned, of being exposed, of losing the carefully constructed image of ourselves that we believe keeps us safe. So we turn love into a strategy, a negotiation, a power game. Modern love thrives on this addiction. We celebrate, setting boundaries and guarding our hearts as virtues, yet often these are veils for fear-based control mechanisms. We crave the illusion of safety, even if it means sacrificing authenticity. We want the other to bend to our needs, but refuse to acknowledge our own role in bending them. And here lies the silent warning Jung left us. When love becomes a strategy, it ceases to be love. True connection demands the terrifying risk of exposure, the willingness to be seen without armor, to be loved not for the persona you present, but for the raw, unfiltered self that lurks beneath. But most are unwilling to take that risk. It is easier, safer, to maintain control. Even at the cost of genuine intimacy, ask yourself, how much of your behavior in love is an attempt to control the outcome? How often do you withhold your truth for fear of losing them? How often do you perform affection to elicit theirs? You are not alone in this. We all do it until we see it. But once seen, the question becomes inescapable. Do you continue to manipulate, or do you dare to let go? Because the death of control is the birth of real love. You tell yourself you're afraid of being abandoned. But what if I told you that unconsciously, you are orchestrating that very abandonment over and over again? This is the most uncomfortable truth Jung forces us to confront, that what we fear most, we unconsciously seek. The fear of abandonment is not just an emotional wound, It is an ancient pattern embedded in your psyche, silently shaping the dynamics of every relationship you enter. Look at your history. How many times have you been left? How many times have you felt invisible, discarded, betrayed? And yet, how many times did you choose someone who was never truly available? Someone who signaled from the very beginning that they could never meet your needs? This is not coincidence. It is not bad luck. It is the compulsion to repeat, the psyche's tragic tendency to recreate early wounds, hoping for a different outcome, but always spiraling back to the same inevitable pain. Jung called this the repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive, to restage unresolved traumas in an endless loop, not out of masochism, but out of the desperate hope that this time, the ending might be different. But it never is, not until you recognize the pattern. So here you are, caught between your conscious desire for love and your unconscious destiny of abandonment. You sabotage intimacy, push away those who care, cling to those who cannot give, all while telling yourself the story that you are simply unlucky in love. But luck has nothing to do with it, until you confront the part of you that expects to be abandoned, that anticipates it, that almost requires it to confirm your self-narrative. You will continue to recreate this fate indefinitely. This is the trap of modern love. It encourages you to seek new partners without ever questioning the old patterns. It tells you to move on without ever looking back at the wreckage for the real clues. But Jung knew, the only way out is through. Through the pain, through the fear, through the unbearable vulnerability of admitting that perhaps you are not a victim of abandonment, but its unconscious architect. Are you prepared to face that truth? You think you're falling in love with a person, but are you? Or are you falling into an archetype? Carl Jung taught us that archetypes, universal, primordial images and patterns, shape our perceptions and relationships long before we are consciously aware of them. And few are more seductive in modern love than the archetype of the savior and the wounded. How many times have you sought to rescue someone from their pain, believing that your love could heal them? How many times have you been drawn to the broken, the damaged, the emotionally unavailable, convinced that your presence alone could mend their wounds? And how many times has this ended in devastation? You tell yourself it's compassion, that you see the good in them when no one else does. But Jung would ask, what wound within yourself are you truly trying to heal by saving them? This is the trap. By projecting the savior archetype, you mask your own unacknowledged need for salvation. You externalize the healing you crave, convincing yourself that if you can fix them, you will finally prove your worth, your adequacy, your lovability. But love rooted in rescue is not love. It is codependence, it is control, it is manipulation. Masquerading as care. Equally dangerous is its inverse, playing the wounded, seeking someone to save you, to compensate for the inner fractures you refuse to confront. You cling to the fantasy of being seen, healed, redeemed, but only by someone else, never by yourself. Modern relationships are littered with these tragic performances, the savior exhausting themselves trying to fix the unfixable, the wounded sabotaging every act of love because deep down, they believe they are unworthy of healing. But what if no one needs to be saved? What if the very impulse to rescue or be rescued is the symptom of an unintegrated psyche, crying out for self-confrontation? Jung insisted, wholeness is not found in merging with another, but in integrating the fragmented parts within yourself. So I ask you, are you seeking a partner or a patient? Are you offering love or a misguided attempt to heal what only you can face? This is the choice, to perpetuate the archetypal drama or to break free from it. You were taught to believe in the myth of romantic love, that somewhere out there exists your perfect other, your soulmate, your missing piece. But what if I told you that this ideal is not a testament to the power of love, but a symptom of psychological fragmentation? Carl Jung warned us, when we fail to integrate the disparate parts of our psyche, we externalize them. We project them onto others, seeking completion through a romantic partner rather than within ourselves. This is the true origin of romantic idealism, the fantasy that another person will heal your wounds, fulfill your longings, and finally make you whole. But what happens when the fantasy collides with reality? When your perfect partner inevitably fails to meet your unconscious expectations? You feel betrayed, disillusioned, even enraged, not because they wronged you, but because they could never embody the ideal you imposed upon them. And so, modern love cycles through endless disappointment, from euphoric infatuation to crushing disillusionment. Each new relationship begins with the intoxicating hope of completion and ends with the bitter realization that no one can carry the weight of your unlived life. Jung called this phenomenon anima-animus projection, where we mistake an inner, archetypal figure for the flesh and blood person standing before us. The beloved becomes a screen onto which we project our unconscious longings, our fantasies of redemption, of transcendence. But here lies the tragedy. As long as you continue to project your unlived potential onto another, you remain split, incomplete, forever dependent on an external source for your sense of self. The death of romantic idealism is not the death of love. It is the beginning of real love. Love not as a search for completion, but as a meeting between two integrated individuals, neither seeking to be saved nor to save. This is the love Jung pointed toward, not a fusion of two halves, but a union of two wholes. But such love requires that you first mourn the myth you were sold. It requires that you confront the terrifying possibility that no one is coming to rescue you, that the only one who can make you whole is yourself. Are you ready to let that myth die? Now we stand at the threshold, the place where most turn back, clinging to the familiar agony of their unconscious patterns. But you have a choice. Carl Jung taught that the purpose of human life is not happiness, not romantic fulfillment, not even love as we commonly understand it, but individuation. The lifelong process of integrating the fragmented parts of the psyche into a coherent, authentic self. And this is where modern love misleads you. It tells you to find someone who completes you, to chase after fleeting passions, to mold yourself into what others desire, all while avoiding the most essential task, to confront, accept, and integrate your shadow, your persona, your unconscious instincts. If you refuse this task, your relationships will continue to be arenas of manipulation, projection, and unconscious contracts. You will repeat the same cycles, love the same archetypes, suffer the same heartbreaks, and call it fate. But if you dare to embark on this path of integration, everything changes. No longer will you seek love to fill your inner void. You will approach it as an offering from a place of wholeness. No longer will you manipulate or perform. You will reveal yourself honestly, risking rejection but also inviting genuine connection. You will recognize your patterns, not as prisons but as signposts pointing toward the work you must do. You will see your lovers not as saviors or villains, but as mirrors reflecting your own psyche back to you. And perhaps for the first time you will love, not from compulsion, not from fear, not from longing for completion, but from freedom. This is the silent warning Jung left about emotional manipulation in modern love, that unless you awaken, you will remain forever ensnared by your own unconscious scripts, mistaking them for destiny. But this warning is also an invitation to break the cycle, to confront the shadow, to dismantle the persona, and to step into the terrifying, liberating light of psychological integration. So I leave you with one question, the only question that truly matters. Will you choose to awaken or to repeat? The choice is yours.